Everybody ready? Well, good morning, and thank you for your time, and thank you for coming up. This morning at approximately 3:46 a.m., the Indian River County Sheriff's Office 911 Center received several frantic calls of a 42-year-old male in some type of distress. In fact, some of the statements made that he was tripping and he was freaking out. Approximately 3:50 a.m., two deputies 4 minutes later from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office arrived and encountered Mr. Jermaine Benjamin, 42 years of age, in a very distraught state. Our deputies were able to detain him, as the witnesses from the prior 911 calls had mentioned already. They were able to take control of Mr. Benjamin, at which point simultaneously EMS was arriving at the scene. It was apparent from all witness statements and available evidence that Mr. Benjamin was in some type of distress. Shortly thereafter, EMS personnel, with the assistance of the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, transported Mr. Benjamin to the Indian River Medical Center, at which point he was being treated for his distress. And unfortunately, at 4:24 a.m., Mr. Benjamin was pronounced deceased. Interesting enough, this particular residence that we responded to, in the last 9 years, we have been there 70 times, 70 times. In fact, the last known address for Mr. Benjamin, we had been there 56 times in the last decade. It is an ongoing investigation, of course. Anytime we have something of this magnitude, a lot of things go into play. It is an active crime scene, it is an active investigation, and obviously we will be patiently awaiting the medical examiner's report.
Of those 56 and 70 times, what were the calls?
The last known address of Mr. Benjamin, we had been there 56 times in the last decade. The residence that we responded to this morning at 3:50 a.m., we had been there 70 times in the last 9 years.
Is there any indication that his distress was caused by illegal drug use?
Of the frantic 911 calls, the description that I think you've been privileged to on those 911 calls indicated that he was in some type of state. In fact, the term tripping and freaking out were used. So we cannot speculate on what caused that. But we do know our investigation continues, and our medical examiner's report will reveal the toxicology of Mr. Benjamin.
But you want the public to be aware of risks that exist? Of
course. Yeah. We can't speculate if any type of narcotics were involved. That's not our business to speculate. Our business is to follow the facts, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Sheriff, there were some residents out there saying that one of your deputies had his knee on Mr. Benjamin.
No, we have no indications. We have no indications of that. We know that our deputies responded in 4 minutes to the scene, which was actually an EMS call. We know that our deputies did what they had. We also know that they performed CPR until EMS was cleared to come to that particular scene. Again, this is at 3:50 a.m. On a Tuesday morning.
Was EMS held at bay until you guys got there, or how was that?
Oftentimes when we have a frantic call, EMS will stand by until law enforcement clears the scene. By the volume of the 911 call, it appeared that there was some type of frantic activity going on. You hear a female's voice asking for EMS in an ambulance. This was an EMS ambulance call prior to this being a police call.
So he was never in your custody? There was never like a call for any illegal activity on his part?
There was not a call for illegal activity on his part.
What was the scene like when you got there? Was there a gathering of people? Was it just a few people around his house?
I understand there were several people involved, and there were several people outside. Obviously, with the 911 calls that we had and the background noise that you hear, does appear that in fact there were multiple people there.
How often is your department called out on similar type calls?
So the question is, how often are we called out on similar type calls? In this day and age, we are frequently called to situations involving similar instances where someone may be having some type of EMS episode or some other type of behavioral health episode.
I know with the concerns of FLACA and other areas, the symptoms are described as excited, delirious. Would that be accurate to call the way he was acting, what you've heard?
We can't exactly speculate on what his state was. We do know that our medical examiner's report will deliver the information that we need to assist in our investigation.
Is there,
What was his state, one more time, when you guys got there? What was it?
Well, the original 911 call, I believe, stated that he was tripping and led us to believe that he was out of control. When our deputies arrived 4 minutes early, they observed exactly that, what the witness had telephoned in, and they went into action and were able to contain him and begin the CPR maneuvers until EMS arrived.
Is this a recent problem you all have seen a spike in?
I wouldn't say it's a recent issue that we've seen. Throughout the history of law enforcement, of course, we've seen different trends from everything from acid way back to the continuation of marijuana, crack cocaine, powder cocaine, crystal meth, and the like. But we can't speculate on the cause of death on this particular case, of course, until the medical examiner's report is released.
has there been any kind of an increase in drug use in this area lately, at least for calls for you guys?
We have remained consistent. I do have those statistics for you, and we have had a continuous uptick in our drug-related calls in the last 4 years, and that continues to be an issue not only in Indian River County, the state of Florida, but the United States of America.
Aside from this case, an earlier release from the Sheriff's Department indicated that people need to be aware that street drugs can vary in their potency and the effects that they have on people. Is that an issue you would like to address?
Of course, it's a continuous problem with the variety of drugs that we see on the streets of America, and that is one issue that we continue to try to educate our public, educate our law enforcement personnel, as well as our EMS personnel.
Is there any kind of investigation into whether or not there was any illegal activity going on at that home last night?
Of course, that will be a continuous and part of our death investigation of the whereabouts of who were in that area, who made those frantic calls, and any other trends that we see in that particular area.
Was there anyone on scene last night that talked to you guys to imply that he had been using drugs?
I'm not certain about that yet.
Is this something your officers would call unusual? Is this behavior? Or?
No. In recent years, of course, throughout America, we have seen calls for service like this. We cannot speculate what the causation of his death was this morning, but we do know with the result of the medical examiner's toxicology report, that should clearly outline the cause of death.
How are deputies trained to deal with this kind of situation?
Of course, all deputies and police officers in the state of Florida, which there's about 70,000 in the state of Florida, have guidelines by the Criminal Justice Standards and Training Institute to include the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Drug recognition, of course, is one of our mandatory training components. Additionally, each agency specifically may see different trends in their region of the country or the state. And then specific training will continue through our narcotics unit. In other words, identifying dangerous drugs is one of our components as well.
Do you think they did everything?
Absolutely.
you should have asked?
Absolutely. I think when a call is dispatched as a fire EMS call at 3:46 and your deputies arrive at 3:50 a.m. within 4 minutes, that's fantastic response time. They did what they could to attempt to save Mr. Benjamin's life until EMS arrived. It's an unfortunate situation.
How much force was required to control him?
We can't speculate on how much force was used to control him. We do know that it was an active scene. We do know that the callers on the 911 recordings indicate that he was in some type of distress. They were frantically asking for the ambulance, as if something imminent was going to happen.
Was he in any way violent when the deputies arrived?
We have no indications that he was violent. We have indications that we were able to contain him and administer CPR.
Have there been past calls of those, dozens to his home or to this residence for drug use?
Yes, there have. That particular residence, in the last 9 years, we've been there 70 times. His last known address, as mentioned before, we had been there 57 times in the last decade.
All for drugs?
A variety of calls for service. All right. Thank you very much. We have photos of the location and some other information that you're more than welcome to have. Thank you.